So I'm sure you've been seeing a lot on the news about what's going on here in New York and the United States. And it's probably confusing and maybe you don't really understand what's causing all this or what actually is happening. And being here in New York, it's hard to explain. Um, I guess at the root of all of it is that there has been racism in this country for hundreds of years, and Black Americans have had enough of being killed, of being prejudiced against, about being second class citizens. And as a white person who feels that they're very liberal and have friends from all ethnicities and races and religions, I still benefit from being white. I have privileges in this country for being white that a lot of people don't. And I have to realize that. And it's just the way that it is right now. And that's what we're trying to fix. So I'm not going to pretend to understand what Black Americans are going through, but I do want to try to fix it. So the best way I can explain it is, you might know a blind person or a deaf person, but you really don't know what it's like to be blind or deaf until you've been that. And I've never been Black in this country, though I've seen things that clearly indicate that it's a different experience than being a white person. So what just happened recently with George Floyd was another Black man being murdered by a police officer. No question. He was murdered by the police. Other police that I know said he was murdered by the police. The liberal media, the conservative media, the moderate media, they all agree that he was murdered. And it's not just about George Floyd being murdered by the police. It's all about the system that has been perpetuating this and letting it happen, where this has just become one in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instances that happen in the Black community. And for example, there are white men that get stopped by the police with guns who don't get treated the way that this unarmed person was treated. So we reached out to our friend Seku, who you might recognize from being with us on the Travel Channel and another video that Magda did, and asked him to explain what it's like to grow up to be a Black man in this country. And I hope that hearing him speak will give you a little bit of a perspective, but also get you to ask questions, and hopefully questions that you can ask that he'll respond to. Because you really, really can't know. We really can't unless you've gone through what the community has gone through. So we thought it was important to do this, because right now, if you just watch the news, it's really distorting. It looks like people are burning things and stealing, and they're just really focusing on things that have nothing to do with what's at heart of this issue. And it's very important to us. So we're going to let Seku explain to you.
Seku Grey. I'm from the Bronx, New York. I'm Black, African American, whatever term you want to use. Culturally, I'm a Hawaiian, Cuban, Afro-Cuban by blood. I just want to speak a little bit about what's going on in the world today. It's a lot. America right now is trying to unify, but we are definitely segregated by race, class, culture, and it's been like that for years. A lot of us think it's it's just a past. A lot of people don't understand what I and we as Black people go through on a day-to-day basis. And it's an important thing for people to understand, people who are not of color, to understand, truly try, because you will never understand, truly try to understand the injustice that's always happening to us in our communities, the prejudice, the pure, blatant racism that goes on every single day. And it has to stop. so many people have gotten used to it and have gotten used to see a black man handcuffed, a black woman abused by the police or by someone racist. It's become normal in America. The stereotype is continued. If you see a young black man and someone afraid they're gonna walk across the street instead of really get to know who the person is. It's really, I think it's social divides that really doesn't allow us to be unified. Understanding each other's culture, understanding each other's differences is a fear. There's a fear, and it's also a behavior that was taught in America that black is bad, white is good. You'll see it on TV, you'll see it on commercials, you see it in movies. How we desegregate, even in comedy, and most of us think it's funny, but also it's something that's, embedded in your brain that's telling you this is what it is. This form of discrimination and hate and by government and by the police has been going on in America for years. From my grandparents' generation to now, from Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, civil rights, all through the civil rights movement, there's been tons and tons of people, Rodney King, Amadou Diallo, so many different things that's been going on, and people murdered, completely, taken away. Innocent people murdered, and I think so many of us have become numb, even African Americans, even blacks. We've become so numb because we've been kind of yearning for help all this time, and we continue to get harassed, continue to get judged, continue to be arrested and killed and harassed and be in fear for no reason. So that's going to definitely pile up and it's going to outrage us, with emotion. Put yourself in our shoes, or if the tables was turned, try to think about it in that way. This is a real thing. And now people can finally see it. Now you can see these protests that are happening. You can really see the outrage. Yeah, there's a form of people looting and setting fires and doing things of that nature, but that's not true protesters. Those are people really taking this opportunity to just be angry and violent, and that's not what it's about. But that's what the media and the TV is going to tell you. The media and the TV is going to show you the windows being broken, but they're not going to show you when cops and protesters kneel down and hug together and trying to create peace. When people who are not people of color taking bricks, throwing them through windows, and also cops breaking windows to make it look like the protesters are doing it. These are a lot of things that happen that you're not going to really understand or see, because the media and the TV is going to show you one thing to hide the truth. That's always been the case. It's just unbelievable times right now. And as a black man here in America, I always feel like there's eyes on me. I always feel like I have to be better, one step above, because that's how it's always been. So many people fought for freedom. Only 50 years ago in America, blacks was allowed to vote. About 60, 70 years ago, there was still segregation. You had to drink at white fountains, black fountains. You had to be separated. And to think that today this still exists, of course it does, because no true healing and no true understanding has been brought to the table. And I just feel like, America has a lot that they have to give to black people and people of color. And, you know, we have contributed so much to this country, from building this country, from slavery to freedom, to fighting wars, to entertaining, to, you know, building genres of music and fashion and most things that are considered cool in the world, in America, you know, is because of us, because despite all the horrible things that we've been through over these years, we're still able to create, we're still able to rise up, we're still able to be positive through it all. But yeah, sometimes we are still angry because the same thing keeps happening over and over. And I believe if it was anyone else, they'd have the same feelings. So it's time for things to really, really, really change. It's time for things to really change. And it's not gonna happen, you know, without unity amongst different races, without people that are not of color to speak up, to, you know, to talk about injustice, to talk about how bad it is when you see something crazy happen, like it happened in Minnesota, where someone was murdered right before our eyes. And that's not the only time we've seen it. And so many times it's been going on without any justice, without anyone being prosecuted, without anyone really paying for the torture and the torment that's happening to our people. And things really, really have to change. So, you know, everything that you see on TV is not all what it is. You know, me, myself, I had so many run-ins with the police and being discriminated, being beat from the age of 12. I can count about 7 different times that I've been stopped for mistaken identity, handcuffed, pepper sprayed, called a nigga. And, you know, this is in the 2000s. And it's like, what is this world coming to? Recently, I had a situation about 4 days ago with sitting at a table, because like now with COVID and everything's happening in certain places in the country, things are open, and for the first time I was able to sit down with a couple of friends, and there's only supposed to be 10 people sitting down, and a security guard. I'm the only person of color and everyone else was white, and he was making sure we had the right number of people at our table, but he said, hey, the black guy counts for 2 seats. So, but not really being funny, being more sarcastic. And it just shows that there's bits of hate, especially with all this stuff going on, that someone would even say that now in America. But I'm supposed to take it, and then, you know, my white friends feel weird but try to laugh it off. But it's all discrimination. I'm a college educated entrepreneur, you know, decent human being, but I could have easily been killed, like the young man in Minnesota, like everybody else in America that's been murdered by the police. There's so many names that people don't know about, and that's what makes me so mad and livid. Before there was cameras like this, and before people can really know what was going on, there were people murdered by the police, covered up, people locked in prison. There's been so many things happening. The riots and the looting and the protests is not the real focus. It's more of the pain. It's more of the cry for years and years of not having nothing. I was raised in the projects of the South Bronx. If you don't understand what the South Bronx is, look it up. It's one of the poorest places in the country, even now. But growing up there in the 80s and 90s was a whole nother world. The government didn't care about us. Police didn't care about us. I mean, I seen my first dead body at 11, seen people get murdered and killed. So many things that has been conditioned. You know, our mind's been conditioned to see things, to be in one place. Privileged people stay in their bubble. Black people stay in their bubble. We're taught to hate. We're taught not to experience each other's differences. And that's what's wrong. I fortunately was able to get out of a lot of this, and I think it's time for everyone else to wake up. It's time for people that's not of color to come to our side, to understand us, to understand our pain, put us in a focal point of positivity, uplift us. Understand that black is not bad, but black lives matter. It's an important thing. And, I'm not going to be emotional anymore. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to be vigilant and trying to control the narrative and push out positivity and invoke change. And that starts with one person at a time. And I appreciate this time. Thank you, Magda, for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about myself. I'm down to do another talk, interview, whenever you want. But understand that don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. Learn your history, learn your American history, black history. Look up this one thing that I think black people and people of America need to learn. It's called Black Wall Street in America. Whites rioted and burnt down a black town that was full of nothing but amazing entrepreneurs that were black-owned businesses, all because of the color of our skin. That happened almost 100 years ago. This is American history that's not taught